let's talk about the Proud Boys, because apparently they were name dropped in the previous presidential debate that just happened. So I see you there, MC. Thank you for joining. But for those of you who may know, I went to a free speech rally a couple of years ago in 2018. And back in 2018, that was put on by Boston Free Speech and the Proud Boys. A number of YouTubers also went, including Sargon of Akkad, Vernaculus, Wizard of Cause, maybe a few others that I don't necessarily know. So, as far as my experience there, alright, I went there because I support the First Amendment. I support freedom of speech. Oh, and Dr. Shiva, Senate candidate, also was in the doobly-doo as well. He spoke right after I did. I was handing the mic off to him. I think you can see like one of his shoes in the video in the doobly-doo below. What did I take away? Alright, one of the reasons I went there is, well, Charlottesville happened. I asked one individual there, and I can't necessarily say if it was Joe Biggs or not. It was somebody that kind of seemed a bit akin to him from what I've seen from current photos. If it was the same gentleman, he looks like he's lost some weight and probably hit the gym a bit. And you know what? If that's the case, good for him. If it is the same individual, this was also the same individual as saying, what you need to do is you need to get in people's faces and you just need to start yelling and basically just pounding it proverbially into their head and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, well, I disagree with this dude. And they were kind of doing the little thing in the dinner after there, and I'm just kind of sitting there off to the side shaking my head and everything. But you know what? There was another gentleman who got up after him. He's like, you know what? I disagree. I believe we should actually be open to actually listening to other people, actually seeing if we could actually have dialogue, because then we could actually change their minds. I'm like, oh. And from what I saw from some of the videos from, I think it was like the New York event, where a number of the Proud Boys ended up getting charged with something, he looked like one of the individuals that was running to break up the fight. I haven't heard much about that individual, and apparently Joe Biggs seems to kind of be a name going around and growing. I mean, who would ever thought that promoting a more aggressive thing, almost kind of like that rage candy that a lot of the news and, well, news in pretty much any form, including on the internet and everything, seems to be feeding us. Why? Because it's so good, because it elicits so much emotion and everything. But as far as the free speech event goes, I mean, I thought it was pretty good. Did I agree with everything that everyone said? Oh, hell no. Were there some things there that I would like, oh, you know what? Hey, that ain't a bad idea or anything. It's like, all right. All I know is I went there, and there was actually a law enforcement official there. He was like, oh, you got like 60 guys there? And I mean, they got to be impartial and everything, but from what I could see there, it's like, all right, there were like 60 folks there for the freedom of speech rally, and there were like 60 police officers around, more or less fully surrounding. And I was just kind of like walking along, and I was actually walking around it on the other side where you had like a lot of folks kind of just from the town and that were there protesting. It actually was on Patriots Day. And I remember that day because the weather was horrible. They actually canceled the Lexington and Concord reenactment that day. It was so bad. I was literally driving down, all of a sudden I had to stop. There was a tree branch in the middle of the road. I was taking some of the back roads and stuff there. And I was getting out to help move it, and people had already just finished moving it. So I'm like, all right. So we go down there. It was a crappy day. Sargon said a few words, and then it got too cold out for him, so we decided to leave. But it was very interesting there. And I'm like, well, there was a diverse group of individuals. And when I say that, there were a whole bunch of folks from just different backgrounds and everything like that, that people were looking for a common cause. That's the general mimetic that I took away there. As far as basically being potential white supremacists and stuff, I didn't necessarily really see that upon going back and reviewing some videos. At least one person attending the rally, I don't know if he was a member of the Proud Boys or not, he mentioned that he was more or less a neo-Nazi. I'm like, well, 1 out of 60. I'm like, well, it's like what, 1.6% or something like that? And then again, that's just what he said. Was he a member there? Again, I don't know. I've heard pretty much, I'm pretty sure, was an Enrique Tarrio stuff say, well, we completely denounce white supremacy. It seemed to be a little bit more clear than the president's answer, but hey, we all have different ways of communicating, and lack of, why couldn't you just say, yes? Tim Pool gave a pretty good example there. But, hey, you poor old Jelly Duck, Akarin, Joe Franco. Shout outs to my patrons, Joe Franco and Dave M. This broadcast is helped made possible by viewers like you. But went to the event, said my words. They had the big American flag in the background, like you can see in the doobly-doo. And towards the end, like the wind started to pick up, and there was only like one dude there. I'm like, dude, let me help you. Let me friggin' try to like hold this flag and stuff with you there. But you know what? From what I've heard from under the individuals, such as like Base Liz and Halsey, they kind of went through basically it's like a four-step system. And I think this was one of the inherent things wrong with the whole concept of the Proud Boys, at least in my opinion, which essentially started off as a Gavin McInnes joke. What was the issue? It's like, all right, your first thing, you need to declare you're a Western chauvinist, yada yada. Okay. The second thing, you need to basically name 5 breakfast cereals while they're kind of giving you the rabbit punches. And I went to the dinner after there because they had went to a like a steakhouse in like Concord, Massachusetts. Those of you from the area realize that Concord, Massachusetts, it's a decently fancy locale and everything. And I remember when they were doing the initiation there because I found like a Make America Great Again hat. I think I got it somewhere here. I found it. It was just left in there. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was trying to return it. Nobody claimed it. So I got a free Make America Great Again hat there. It's like, am I actively using it? No, not really. But I remember they were doing the whole little thing. I heard the oath and everything. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not saying that, so that ain't for me. And then as they were doing all the rabbit punches to the people that were getting initiated and everything, I noticed a couple walk out of the restaurant. And the look of horror on their faces, I used to see a group of like, I don't know, like 40 or so younger gentlemen there mostly, basically giving a whole bunch of punches on the shoulder to some guy they were initiating. They looked horrified. And I'm like, dude, you guys are going to get the cops called on you. Right around that time, I'm like, well, nobody kind of seemed to listen. I talked to 2 people that kind of seemed like authority figures, and then I left. And I found out on Discord later, they got the cops calling them. Nobody really got in trouble or anything because it's like they were there. But then again, I'm like, I didn't see them actively starting issues. One of the individuals, I actually asked him, like, so what's the deal with Charlottesville? Basically, what I was told was, well, that's another chapter. I don't know. I have heard that excuse from other folks as well. Again, her name was Heather Heyer. That's the thing. She did lose her life. You can argue over whatever the consequences were. The individual was found guilty, and it appears it was overturned after. These appear to be the facts there. Again, you might not necessarily like it, but to the best of my knowledge, that is what happened. Do I believe they're a white supremacist group? No. Do I believe they're out there, or at least are some individuals out there that are looking for a fight? Yeah. But then again, if you want to try to turn it around, you could say that about pretty much every side. But, hey, that's just my personal experience with the Proud Boys. Just wanted to kind of get that out there. It seems to be a topic of interest, and people kind of seem to like to be talking about this. So, just my 2 cents. If you want to watch the video down below, it's Put the Frogs music from Chrono Trigger, because I like RPGs. So, thank you all for watching. Peace out, everybody. Be safe.